Hello and welcome to the Paletteful Packs YouTube channel. My name is Alice and today I have the May 2024 Paletteful Premier Pack here in front of me. Let's go ahead, open it up and see what's inside. Oh my gosh, gouache! I'm so excited. So the first thing that we have here is this Winsor & Newton Designers gouache set. I have used this gouache before. It is great gouache. It re-wets really, really nicely. So this is gonna be a great set. It is the primary color set. So it comes with 6 gouache paints. You're going to get a white, a yellow, a red, a blue, a green, and a black. So this is kind of a perfect all-arounder set to get started with gouache. Gouache is basically a opaque watercolor, and these ones are really high quality. They're made with really fine pigments and they're very vibrant and have this smooth matte finish to them. So I cannot wait to show you how these work. Then we have a nice little mixing palette by Art Alternatives so that we can mix up our colors. Also has 6 wells, which is how many colors we have, so very helpful. I'm also seeing 2 brushes in here. We have the Robert Simmons Sapphire line. This is a size 10 and it is a flat, as you can see. Then we're going to have the Princeton Select Round. This is a size 1, so perfect for all of those little details. We have this super cute sticker of a cat sleeping on a laptop with the Paletteful Packs website open in the back. And then finally, we have the surface. So this is going to be the Fabriano mixed media paper. It is a medium tooth, and this paper is really, really nice. Fabriano is a great paper company, so I'm really excited to try this. It feels really nice and soft and smooth. It's 110 pounds, 160 GSM. The pack is 7 by 10 inches, and it comes with 60 sheets, and they can tear out. Okay, so this is everything you're going to get in the May 2024 Paletteful Premier Pack. We have this 6 set of designer gouache by Winsor & Newton, really the star of the show. This is such a great set, really high artist quality pigments. Then we have our nice little palette for mixing, our 2 brushes, the Robert Simmons Sapphire 10 and the Princeton Select 1, our cute little sticker, and then we have the Fabriano 60 sheet mixed media sketchbook. So I am so excited. I already know what I'm gonna paint, but let's go ahead and make some swatches. I'm gonna show you how these blend and then we'll jump into the painting.
Okay, so let's start by taking these paints out of the package and making some swatches so we can see what the color is like and how opaque they are. Gouache is a form of opaque kind of watercolor, so it's water soluble like watercolor. You can re-wet it, but it's more opaque than watercolor, so you can layer it. That means that I can set out these paints and once they dry, I can re-wet them and use them again. I don't have to worry about waste. So these are all of my colors. I'm gonna go ahead and swatch them. You can't really see the white, but I swatched it anyway because I wanted to see the consistency. These have a nice consistency. You wanna use just a little bit of water, not too much, not too little. As you can see, I'm getting kind of a ink-like texture is kind of what I'm going for right now for these swatches. And you can vary the consistency at which you use gouache, which is one of the really fun things about it. One way you can use it is by watering it down, making it quite liquid like I'm doing with this yellow here. You're gonna add in more water for this technique, and we're gonna be using a wet on wet technique, similar as you would use in watercolor. So I'm just dropping on some liquid green here, and you can see how it starts to spread and feather out and create this beautiful effect. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of blending, starting with the yellow, which is getting a little green, but it's fine. And I'm going to go straight in while it's wet, add in the green on the other side, and then dry off my brush and just use a light feathering stroke to blend those. Next, I'm going to blend kind of on the page. So I use a little bit thicker paint here, or at least I tried to, and then I dry my brush and start blending, similar to the other technique, but you're just going to use a little bit thicker paint, and you can go ahead and add more paint in. So I'm adding in a little bit of yellow, and then I'm adding in a little bit of green, and then drying off my brush and adding in a little yellow in the middle to create that mid-tone green, and then just feathering on those 2 like edges. And I just keep tweaking it until the gradient is kind of what I want. The next technique is going to use more manual blending. So I'm going to start with the yellow, and then I'm going to use these like little hatch-like strokes and change my color, adding in a little bit more yellow each time. So I create this little gradient here. Then I'm going to dry off my brush just a little bit, keeping a little bit of water on it, and start smudging those colors together. Add in a little bit more water and then start blending everything together, because these are water activated, so you can reactivate them after you've done those little hatch marks to blend everything together. So this is kind of a technique that I use a lot. I will also demonstrate this a little bit more effectively over in the painting I'm going to do after. This one went a little funky and I had to re-add the yellow on one side, but it's okay. Now, another principle in gouache is thick over thin. So here you can see I'm laying some thinned down gouache over some thin gouache, and then I'm laying some thicker gouache. And as you can see, the thin down gouache blends and blurs and bleeds a lot more than the thick gouache. So if you want to layer, you tend to want to start thin and then go thicker and thicker and thicker. So we're going to go into the painting now, where I can kind of demonstrate things a little bit more easily. I'm going to tape my page and start with my little sketch. I'm just using a light gray for this sketch, and I'm sketching a little mushroom that my friend found and sent me a photo of. I texted her and I was like, do you have mushroom photos? And she sent me this, so that's what we're painting today. Just keeping the sketch really, really light, very, very simple. I am not going to be doing too much with the sketch here, just kind of establishing where the mushroom is. And then I'm going to go in and start putting in the background. This is going to be kind of a semi-abstract. So I'm going to go in with this really bright blue for my first layer. And with gouache, it is also recommended to work kind of light over dark. So start dark and then move to more light colors. At this point, I'm kind of starting with a mid-tone, but then I kind of move towards starting with dark and moving to light. So it's just a lot harder if you start with white and then you try to layer dark colors over the top of it. It will really pick up on that white. So I recommend, when you can, working from dark to light. So I am starting to establish some really dark colors down here at the bottom, some dark reds, some dark greens, to kind of represent all the mulch and the forest floor that this mushroom was growing from. I also wanted some kind of like sky here. I wasn't sure, I felt like it was a little too blue here, so I was adding in some red to create these beautiful purples, and then going in with some beautiful bright green that we can make by mixing actually that black and that yellow together with a little bit of blue, and adding in some bright highlights. I'm just using lots of very, very loose, sketchy strokes at this point, keeping things really loose because I really want this kind of painterly, loose, almost abstract effect. And as you can see, I'm slowly adding more and more lighter colors, building up my layers. I'm adding in some lighter green and then just a couple different tones of green so that it's not all the same green. When you're painting like plants and nature, if you look at it, it's not every leaf is going to be the same color. There's a lot of different variances, whether it's more blue-green or yellow-green, so it's always helpful to add those in. And going in and again, just adding in these really dark darks to try to make these brights pop. I wanted to get some like lines that kind of represented twigs, and still not happy with the sky, so going in with some cream to really dull it down. I was like, this is too bright for a mushroom in the forest. So we're really trying to dull it down and create this kind of cool pastel effect and just kind of create some texture on there. I really want a lot of texture in this piece. I'm also bringing that sky down a little bit, blending it into the forest floor, almost as if you can see little peaks of it, and adding in some white to kind of symbolize where some clouds might be. Continuing to build up that forest floor. For this forest floor, it had so many layers of mulch and leaves in the actual picture that I felt like I needed to do a lot of layers of gouache. And as you can see, you really can layer it. Sometimes when you layer it, you can reactivate the paint underneath. So that's why you're going to use that thick over thin method, and you're going to use light over dark in case you reactivate what's underneath. Now I'm going to start working with my mushroom. I start with a light cream and I start establishing my little base colors. Like I said, a lot of times it's recommended to work from dark to light. I kind of tend to be more of a mid-tone girly, but it's really personal preference. I'm going to use a wet on wet technique to put in some light tones down at the bottom of this mushroom cap, and then also using that wet on wet technique to add in some darker tones and some blending. One thing that I didn't mention about gouache yet is gouache does tend to dry a little darker than it goes on. Sometimes it dries a little lighter, but it tends to dry a little darker. But the overall kind of vibe is it doesn't dry the color that it goes on the page. Very rarely does it dry the color that it goes on the page. So that's something that you just need to be aware of and cognizant of, and it can be a little hard to match colors because of that. So going in and really just building up a lot of detail and texture, I'm using more of these little hatch marks to blend and to add in my textures, and using lots of tiny little strokes just next to one another, and then blending them in with just a touch of water on my brush, like the tiniest amount. You really don't need a lot. You just want enough to reactivate that paint just a little bit to blend together. Really trying to create this gnarly texture that I saw on the kind of stem of the mushroom. It really kind of looked like it had been kind of beaten up. So I was trying to get that texture there, and then this little kind of like, I don't know, wrap around the base of the mushroom as well. And then we had to go in and try to get the texture on the top of the mushroom, which was kind of difficult. I really wanted to make sure that it looked 3D, but also got the texture. And I kind of struggled with this, probably because in the photo, the lighting on the top of the mushroom isn't very dramatic, so it's a little hard to get that. But using some red with some white and a touch of yellow to get a little bit more of an orangey tone. And again, using that thick over thin method. You can also use a little bit of thinner paint to kind of tint your colors. So I'm using that method as well. But you do have to be careful when you're using thin paint, just because you don't want to reactivate the paint underneath unless you are intending to reactivate the paint underneath. So just a thing to be aware of when you're using gouache. Adding in some bright highlights. As you can see, these are going to dry a little bit darker than I put them down, so I'm going to go back in later and pop those highlights even more. Also adding in some more darks to really establish the shape of this and kind of the top part. And then I felt like the bottom really needed brightening up, so adding in more just like almost pure white to this bottom so that it really brightens up and creates that contrast that I'm looking for in this mushroom. I am super happy with how this piece came out, to be honest. I think it was so fun and freeing. Before I did this, I did a commission that I hated working on, and so this was so freeing and so fun to work on. I really recommend that you guys be free and play around with your gouache. You never know what's going to happen, and embrace the different effects and techniques that you can do with this medium. It's a really fun, versatile medium. I'm so excited that we got it in this box this month, especially getting such high quality paints. These are really high quality pigmented paints. They are artist quality, so they're archival, they're light fast, they're really good quality gouache. This is not starter gouache, this is advanced gouache. So great thing to get in the box this month. I'm just finishing things up with a couple little abstract touches, some little outlines, a couple little hatch marks, and kind of a little bit more areas for clouds. Adding in some bright red too down at the bottom, and a little bit of splatter at the top just for some fun texture. And then I am basically done with my mushroom piece. Absolutely love how this one turned out. Probably one of my favorite pieces I have done in a really long time. I really hope this video was helpful for you and helped you learn a little bit about gouache. Just remember the basic principles: light over dark, thick over thin, and you will do great. I cannot wait to see what everyone did with the gouache this month. Thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to get your own box of awesome art supplies every single month, then click the link in the description box below to join us and get your own Paletteful pack every single month. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!